Good evening, everyone, and welcome again. Thank you for being here on time. And we're ready to start. Thank you. We just are holding at the start of chapter 3, the third chapter. Last week, I gave an introduction. I would like to repeat the introduction, and we will delve in a little bit further. Number 10 in Judaism is very significant. In math, it is the completion of numbers. There is no new number after 10. It's just a repeat of the same numbers. Just the way they are organized may be different. Another number that's very unique is 7. Number 7 represents nature. God created the world in 7 days. According to Kabbalah, the tools in which God designed to create the universe are 10 tools. Just like a mason and an electrician and a plumber, they have tools. A plumber might have a snake, an electrician might have a drill to drill holes, to install boxes, and a mason has a lever and has ladder. They have all kinds of tools. God, in order for him to create the sphere in which we live in, created 10 attributes, 10 tools. Those tools in general are divided into 2 categories. If you look over here, you have the diagram of 10. They actually, as we'll discover, represent the human. The human being possesses all 10, as we'll get to it in a moment. Forget about this one. This is the beginning. We call it the crown, the keter. Crown is outside, is above. We're not discussing it. So you have the first 3, and then you have another 7. 2 sets of 3 and 7, and then number 7 is the last one. The first. So before we delve to those 10, they are the tools which God used to create the universe. Therefore, math works in that way. And because they're divided into 10 categories, it's express itself in the 7 days of creation. Every soul, every human soul, we discussed before, there are 3 souls, and within the godly soul, there are 5 levels. And the 3 that enters the body, nefesh, ruach, neshama, each is made of the 10 attributes. Just like you have a DNA that makes the skin and the tissue of the muscles and the bone, there are the DNA for the souls, and they are the 10 attributes. Attributes, sphirot, are the same. God uses them to create the universe. The soul, the godly soul, each of the 3 is made of those 10. And in addition, as we will discover, our life is made out of those 10 attributes. The 10 attributes are divided into 2 categories. The first category is called the cognitive, the intellectual. And they are the 3 that exist in the brains. We call them, in Hebrew, Chokhmah, Bina, Da'at. Chokhmah, wisdom. Da'at is understanding. And wisdom, understanding, and knowledge. They are the one responsible. We call them mothers because they give birth to the 7 attributes. The 7 attributes are divided into 3 sides: right, left, and middle. When I grew up, according to the teaching of Hasidic teachings, and as we study Tanya, they always are in order, 10 levels going down. But for the sake of better understanding, it's easier when we divide them to right, left, and center. And that's why you have the diagram behind me, which divides them, as we'll discover, each one of the 7 emotional attributes. The emotions are divided actually into 3 emotions, 3 actual, action, and the last one that brings them all and mix them together, malchut, as we'll discover. But in general, the categories the Rabbi is talking about are chokhmah, our are intellect, intellectual, and emotions. 3 are in the brain, 7 are in the heart. That's why the human is standing with the head above, because they should be the one controlling the emotions. Animals, the head and the heart, the head representing intellect, the heart representing emotions, are equal. And the reason they're equal is their brains, their intellect is another tool to help them achieve their desire, fight or flight, how to reproduce. It's all about how to achieve their heart's desire. So the mind is no greater than the heart, even though it might be very intellectual. It does not put them in any way in a greater capacity by controlling their heart. A human being is created standing, not just because it looks better, just simply because that's the reminder how life should be run, controlled. The brains control the heart. And I shared with you, and for those of us who speak Hebrew, it's much easier to appreciate. The one who controls his heart's desire through the mind, we call him Melech. Melech is the word for king. Melech is an acronym. Moach, intellect, lev is heart, and kaved. Kaved, liver, as we'll discover, represent the action. What happened to someone who's a shlemazel? How do you call the shlemazel in the Torah? Lemech. Lemech. And Lemech, as I shared with you last time, it is because unfortunately he killed his grandfather, and by a mistake he also killed his son. And the wives, he had 2 wives, they refused to be with him because they claimed that he is an evil man. And unfortunately, so he had bad luck. That's Lemech. But in Kabbalah, Lemech is Lev of Kaved. In other words, putting your heart before your brains is not serving God properly. Just a minute. All right. So when the doctors say this food or this kind of behavior on an addiction is not good for you, a melech will control his heart's desire. A lemech will just follow his heart's desire without being able to control. The goal of Tanya is to train us to put the mind first. The whole introduction until the 3rd chapter is to get to the point of understanding the DNA, the makeup of a human, where the goal is for us to be able to decide based on cognitive, not on desire. And as we'll get there, we will discover 2 paths. But before we get there, we need to get into the 7 attributes, to the 7 emotional behavior, and understanding better the way the intellect works. I also shared with you at the beginning that the intellect, the brains, is called mother. Just like a mother gives birth to a child, the intellect is the only way for creating healthy emotions. The emotions are called double emotions. They are called double emotions for many, many reasons. One is that each emotion is double 7 times 7. Anyone who counts Sfirat HaOmer will know that there are 7 times 7. You have in kindness, there is 7, and it's myriads. It's many, many. Another way of looking at double emotions is there is positive emotions, and equally there are negative emotions, the same type of emotions. Somebody can act in great kindness, and it can be a very holy act, and someone can act in the same type of kindness, and it's going to be very evil. To have boundaries between me and my neighbor is a very important one. I cannot relate to my neighbor the way I relate to my wife. If someone treats their wife the way they treat their neighbors and vice versa, they acting in kindness, but it's a very negative kindness. If someone is going to treat a stranger the way they treat their children, it's not proper, it's evil, it's inappropriate. In other words, we call them double measures because they are in the same expression, can turn into a positive and can turn into a negative. That's number 1. Number 2, the proper way to lead a life is to have the emotions as offsprings, as children of the mother. The mother resides here. If the mother gives birth to that emotions, it must be a healthy child. If it's an emotion that my friend convinced me, let's go to party, who cares about what my spouse thinks? That's an emotion. It makes me excited. I'm having fun, but it didn't come from here. If it didn't come from here, it wasn't created properly, then that's the best sign. It is an unhealthy, the opposite of a good emotion. Are we clear so far? Now we're ready to read it in the text. Harry, are you following?
It's difficult to understand English, but I'm doing the best I can. You've had a long day.
My bad. So I am starting from the beginning of chapter 3. Now, each of these three distinctions and grades, nefesh, ruach, and neshama, consists of 10 faculties, corresponding to the 10 supernal sphirot, divine manifestations, in which they originate and whence they descend. The 10 sphirot are subdivided into two general categories. These two categories are three mothers, that is, three of these sphirot are termed mothers, and they are the source and root of the other 7 sphirot. As a mother is the source of our offspring, and 7 doubles, the 7 divine attributes called doubles, inasmuch as each of the emotional attributes manifests itself in a twofold manner, as shall presently be explained. I explained that doubles refers to it can be in a positive way, it can be in a negative way. Also, each one of the attributes is times 7. Namely, Chokhmah, wisdom, Bina, understanding, and that knowledge are called mothers. And the 7 doubles are the emotional attributes known as the 7 days of creation. Chesed is kindness, Gvura, severity, Tiferet, beauty, and so on. The other 4 being Netzach, endurance, Hod, splendor, Yesod, foundation, and Malchut, royalty. Before we move on, I'm just going to share with you what we just read and then give you an introduction to the next paragraph. The Rabbi is saying, you have 3 that are mothers. As we will discover those 3 in detail soon, we will discover that actually there is a father and mother, but we're going to get those later. The 7 attributes, the Rabbi is mentioning only 3: Chesed, kindness, Gvura, strictness or severity, and Tiferet, beauty or splendor. The Rabbi does not mention the other 4, and the reason is because the other 3, the last 3, number 6, 7, 8, and 9, are subdivided or subdivision or a subcategory of each one of the above 3. So you need to understand the first 3 emotions, then you understand the other 3, and finally number 10. So let me explain. Chesed is outward, going out, being kind. Kindness needs somebody else. I cannot be kind to myself. I can be kind to an animal. I can be kind to a stranger. I can be kind to a plant. But kindness requires someone. It's external. You cannot be kind to yourself. That's a borrowed term. It's not a true definition. Someone who feels that he is a kind, very kind person, they must express it by contacting or communicating with somebody else and helping. It can be helping with advice, it can be helping with financial, it can be helping with just being there for them, but that's an act of kindness. That's right. The right side is always giving. The strong arm for majority of people is about giving. Kindness is about giving. The second one to the left, to the very left, you would see the middle one is under them. For a reason. It's not equal to the first 2. The second one is to the left. The left is We call it gevura. Gevura is strictness, boundaries. It is the left because you do less. You keep it to yourself. And there has to be a much smaller measure. So a judge, for example, when a crook comes before him and is repeated the crime many times, the judge must set a very harsh punishment. Judgment, that's why they call judges. If they would be kind to the defendant, it will cause a lot of harm. He will not be serving the purpose he was appointed. A father who is only kind to their children, it may be politically incorrect, but in Judaism, boundaries and strictness are a way to raise children. We must tell them bedtime. You must eat certain things. You must be acquiring, passing tests. There must be boundaries. That's what the opposite, and that's in effect, as we'll discover later on, that a much deeper kindness is in strictness, in gevura, because someone who cares, kindness I can do to a stranger. Kindness I can do to my family, to my spouse, to my children, to my parents, also someone I never met. A homeless, if I give him a cup of coffee, I acted in kindness. Strictness, gevura, applies only to people who I care very much and must be very close. We will not, I don't want to get into those details, because all I want to say that some people, when they hear right and left, they think this is bad, good, right is good, left is bad. It's not true. Sometimes left might be even a deeper, much greater good. But right now we're just discussing the emotions. The left one is called gevura. Gevura is setting boundaries. This is a fence. That's my home. That's how far my kids can play outside, or that's how far I can plant seeds. I cannot cross. The neighbor cannot cross into. It must be set in order for us to live a good life. So strictness is in a smaller measure than kindness. Now, some people will possess strong in kindness, some are in strong in gevura, and that's who they are. That's their identity. That's their DNA. You cannot change that. Yes.
So gevura has nothing to do with strength.
Strength meaning power? Nothing.
The severity. It has nothing to do with might.
Severity or strictness or measurement. Abraham was a kind, represented kindness. Yitzchak represent gevura. Yitzchak did not interact. Abraham, you read that Abraham, Vayisa Abraham aloch v'naso anegba. Abraham always moved around. He came from one place to Haran, then to Israel, and he was traveling. Then he goes to Egypt. He comes back to Gaur, to Palestine. He's going around. He went on a cruise. And when the Royal Caribbean came with a new boat, with a new cruise ship, he was there. He talk to him about cruises. He will tell you which cabin, what port, and what season. Yitzchak, on the other hand, never left Israel. We don't see that he interacted, although he affected many people. They came to him. They were inspired by his righteousness, by his success, that they realized there is something special about the man. Let's find out a little more about him. So instead of him reaching out, Abraham reaching out, Yitzchak was attracting people over. So that's so. What's the question?
How do you say strength in Hebrew?
Strength, chozek, koach. No. By the way, in Hebrew it's very distinct. We have some Israelis that can tell you that gevura and strength, in grammar, it doesn't work. Gibor is a strong man, but gevura is not gibor.
Thanks.
So this is the second emotion. I hope I express myself clear. The third one we call, and I want to go over them very quickly because the goal of this chapter is more of the intellectual. I just want to express those 7 attributes very fast. The third one we call tiferet. Tiferet is beauty, beauty or splendor, beauty or compassion. There are many ways to explain that. The third one is not a combination of the two, but it looks like a combination of the two because it sits in the middle. In other words, you have someone who's very kind. Let's say the mother is very kind to the children. She's always kind to them, giving them hugs and kisses and saying, don't worry, tomorrow is another day. You have the father who is very strict. No, no, no. You have to be on time. Why are you short sturdy? Why did you rip your pants? You have the father and the mother. And by the way, it's in the Torah that way. The goal is to have tiferet, the beauty, the combination of the two. The combination of the two is looking at the recipient and seeing what their needs are. And that's mixing the two colors. Kindness is usually the color of blue. Strictness is red. Red, blood, is all discovered. Mother representing milk or white, and blue. The father or strictness is represented through blood or red. And we'll find many examples, we'll find out. Tiferet is taking the colors and making a whole new beautiful combination that comes out of much nicer. And Tiferet is actually take this. In other words, kindness is how I feel. It makes me feel good to help you. Strictness is what I care about, my needs. What are my needs? I need to know that you don't cross the boundary. You don't cross into my property. You don't take my car without permission. If you are my child or I'm the judge, you have to follow certain rules. Tiferet is looking at the recipient and seeing what that person needs. Does he need a smile and an act of kindness? Or he needs the opposite, where we are strict and angry or show that we will not give him a second chance. That's the better choice. By the way, Jacob is Tiferet. Tiferet, the third one, is represented by Jacob. Abraham to the right, Isaac to the left, Jacob to the middle. That's why we see how it played out with the children. Abraham was not so successful with children, not so successful, meaning one of his children turned out not correct. Because when you have one measure, only kindness, it works with some, but with others it doesn't. Yitzchak had two sons, one of them didn't turn out correct, because Gvura works with some, but not always with all. Tiferet, Yaakov, had 12 children, and all of them came out at the end, they came out perfect. And the reason is because he knew that with one child he needs kindness, with the other Gevura, with another one he needs to do a little bit, with another one he has to stay away. By the way, reading the Torah, the stories of Jacob, it's fascinating. He had rebuked his children for the first time only before he died, because he was afraid that by the rebuking them, they will refuse to come for a Shabbos table. So therefore, he did not rebuke them. There's an enormous amount of lessons you can learn from Jacob. Jacob is Tiferet, and that's why.
It's a combination or it's not a combination?
It's a totally new,
It's not.
right. It's not a subdivision. It's not a subcategory like the other three that I'm about to talk. However, it looks like, because sometimes you act in strictness and others you act in kindness. The reason is you're not looking at what makes me feel good, but what's the benefit, what's the beneficiary's need. So if my child or the poor man who begs for money, and I'm afraid that he's going to use it for drugs, I can say to him, I'm sorry, I don't think I can help you. Or I can take you to a kosher restaurant, of course, and I'll buy you a sandwich. However, if I'm a kind person, I see someone crying, I'll give him the money. What he will do, end up hurting himself. Being strict, pushing up, there is in the Talmud many stories of many very holy men that because they were pushed off, or they thought that they were pushed by the masters, they caused a lot of grief and trouble. One example that comes to mind is Jesus. If anybody knows his story, he was pushed by his master. He's a yeshiva boy. He studied in yeshiva, but when he came to ask for forgiveness, the master, the teacher, Rabbi Yoshua, was reciting the Shema, so he couldn't respond, and he thought that it means that he was being pushed off, and that's when he left and caused all that, we endure throughout the history. So strictness alone works with some people. Kindness alone works with some people and some events. Tiferet, the beauty or compassion, is a whole new idea. Well, it's not how I feel or what I want. It's about what's the person in front of me, or the animal or the plant is in. What's the need? How will it be served best? Yes.
How can you reconcile Jacob's liking or loving Joseph above and beyond when each one of them should have gotten equal treatment?
Can you think of an answer?
I knew the answer, Rabbi.
So first, we see that he paid dearly, right? Number one. Number two, it shows us that if I can say, no one is perfect. The rabbis all criticize Yosef. The Talmud criticize Yosef. The Talmud says, don't do like what Yaakov did, because look what the outcome was. So nobody is perfect. Human beings, but they are not judged by those events, rather by the rest of their life, and the fact that at the end of their life, everybody came together.
But we pay dearly in the future with the 10 martyrs who have those shoes.
So again, it's a good question, and the answer is no one is perfect. They were not perfect, but at the end of the day, they were all together. They're all respectful of one another, and they share their life together. So that's an achievement for their father and mother. So these are the first three. Chesed on the right, Gvura on the left, Tiferet or compassion on the middle. Now we're going to go to the other three. The first one is called Netzach. Netzach is victory, or the way he calls it, endurance. Netzach is some people always must be victorious. I have one of my children that whenever we play a game, he must win. If he does not win, it's the end of his life. It's unbelievable.
Like a lion.
Like a lion, yes. Some people, it's all about, they are very competitive. They need to show that they are best at what they do. How many times people say, I don't do much, but whatever I do, I have to be the best at what I do. It has to be perfect. Every project they take upon themselves must be perfect. That's called netzach. It comes from kindness. It's a subcategory of kindness. It's about impressing upon others. I am above you. I'm greater than you. It can be very positive, by the way. What's kindness? Kindness needs somebody else to express. Gvura, strictness, don't necessarily need somebody. Kindness must have someone to bestow. He must be victorious over somebody else. He must achieve greatness only if he's, I gave somebody the famous story, if he's going to score a hole-in-one at golfing and he has nobody to tell it to, what for? You know the story. I just showed the story. The Reform rabbi has had it with God. He decided on the holiest day he's not going to go to temple. So where does he go? All his friends are in temple. And Yom Kippur, they all are in temple, and he's not. He decided to go golfing. So he goes to golfing, and sure enough, he got hole-in-one. And he says, God, you see, I did not go to temple. I don't care about you. And you look what I got. And then he hears an echo back, and who are you going to tell it to? So, you need to have somebody to be victorious over. You need to tell. That's the idea of subcategory of kindness. The left one is called Hod. Hod is beauty. I have to look good. I have to be presentable. I have to make sure people always think of me in a positive way. That's Hod. Huh?
I thought we started left and go right. We started left, right.
Netzach Hod. No. I'm Netzach Hod. Netzach is right, Hod is the left.
Okay.
Number 9 is called Yesod, foundation. Foundation represent this desire to reproduce, to make sure that the seed continues on to the next generation. We all have that desire. We had a JLI, a research that says that 90% of people surveyed said they want to get married when there is no good reason. All the economical, social, sociology reasons to get married in 100 years ago do not exist. Today you can have children without being married. You can have sex without being married. You can have a good living without being married. You can achieve all greatness and have all social life without being married. Yet 90% of the people want to be married. And the reason is because of a desire to continue on the seed, to continue on the same way as it was. That's Yesod is in the middle. And final one is Malchut, royalty or kingdom. Royalty, a king does not do much. A king is just a title that appoints many ministers. The ministers express or bring out his policy. He has an educational minister, he has a minister of war, interior minister, minister of finances. They actually do, but together it brings out the desire of the king. The king is actually sitting in his throne and he's always smiling. You don't even get to see the king. That's Malchut. Malchut is in the middle and the bottom. It takes everything and it's like a mixer. Mixes, because we have a little bit of every one of those 7. Mixing them together creates our personality, which is very, very unique. This is in very, very short, all the 10 attributes. By the way, those 7 attributes are called 7 days of creation, because if you look at any day of the creation, what God created, it corresponds to the 7 attributes. So first day, God created the earth. He created life. He removed the water. He allowed for the dry land to come. What did he do on the second? I'm sorry. What did God create on the first day? Light. Light. So light is a source of life. The second day didn't create anything. He just allowed for the earth to become dry by separating the upper water separation. That's Gevura. Every one of the 7 days, Ramban, Nachmanides tell us, corresponds to in exact way to the 7 attributes. That's why on Shabbat, what do we call Shabbat the day? Shabbat HaMalka, the queen, because the day that we rest. Because the Malchut does not produce anything, it just receives and expresses it out together, combining all 7. That's what Shabbat is about. All the preparation during the week is made for Shabbat, to be able to rest and enjoy all the day's work during Shabbat. These are the 7 attributes. Now we're going to go back to the 3 intellectual, which is the real reason we're studying, the chapter 3. I hope I'm not going too far. Although I'm going a little fast, the reason I'm going a little fast is because we will dissect each one of those 7 many, many times and many, many aspects, because it has many, many dimensions. These 7 attributes are known as the 7 days of creation. By the way, according to the Torah, the world is created how many years ago? 5,783 years ago. So what day are we on? Friday, right? 5,001 is the 6th day. Shabbat is the 7,000. So the 7 days of creation, 7 emotions correspond to the 7 millennia. And again, if you look at the 7,000 years of the 7 millennia, they literally correspond to the 7 attributes. What happened on Shabbat? Malchut, arrest. Mashiach will come and we'll have not to toil, no labor in delivery. There will be babies born without pain. People will not have to go to work. There will be no doctors, no lawyers. They will be out of work. Nobody sues anybody, no jealousy. Nobody will get sick. Now,
Then you're.
5,783 is more than 3/4 into Friday afternoon. 5,750, 750 is already 3/4 of the day. Anybody knows any?
The shabbos, right? At 6,000, we get the shabbos.
It's the 7 millennia. Yes, correct.
So that's what someone read about. It's gonna be close to beyond 6,000.
What? Of course, beyond number 7, Shabbat, the day of rest.
I had heard somewhere that the world, Mashiach will come and the world will end in 6,000 years. Someone said, no, 6,000 something, a couple of hundred years after 6,000.
The world will begin. So.
When I tell you that you are, when you are a year old, you are into your second year, right? So when I say 5,000, 5,000 have completed 700 of the 6 millennia. So when we reach 6,000, it's already getting into Shabbat. I don't know what you heard. I don't even need to respond to it. I'm sharing with you what we study here. There are 7 emotions, and the 6 emotions are action, and the 7th one is Shabbat, the day of rest, the purpose for which God created the universe. We walk for 6 days according to Torah, Sheshet Yamim Ta'avod, Uvayom HaShvi Tishbot, so we can enjoy Shabbat. Without toil, without labor, we don't appreciate rest. Without challenges, we don't appreciate family time. The only way we appreciate Shabbat is because during the week we have no time. And we have phone, and we have Facebook, and we have all the Zachen, all the other stuff. I don't want to say the right word.
This guy.
And yet, come Shabbat, you take a break. The world was created for Shabbat. Shabbat is the time when we will enjoy the labor of our life throughout the 6,000 years. It will be a world forever. After that, there will be no people die, etc. I wanted to get to one very interesting point. Anybody been to a Jewish community who follow tradition on Friday afternoon? Have you seen Friday afternoon in Borough Park, in Crown Heights, in Beneva? There is one way to know. Without knowing what day it is, you can guarantee to know it's Friday afternoon. Nobody has time. Everybody is running. Why are you laughing? Because you're experiencing. People are rushing. People are rushing. They have no time. Catch the store. The store is closing. I got this. They're always busy. Now, it doesn't matter how late Shabbat enters. I realize that in my house, I tell my family 10 minutes before Shabbat, we should light candles, should be ready. Let's honor the Shabbat 10 minutes before. Imagine the queen is coming. You can't just go out after when they ring the bell. You have to be prepared before they ring the bell. So, during winter, it's early. I say, okay, you're busy. But what happened when Shabbat starts at 8 o'clock? What happened? You have 3 more hours. You didn't have the whole winter. There is no time. They take the shower just when the time is. I was in Israel, in my village, and I think they do it in many places in Israel. They sound a very loud siren. Now they use music that goes across the entire town. So they used to do it 10 minutes before the first time for a minute, and then gives you 10 more minutes, and the last time at the time. Now they do it 3 times. They do it because 10 minutes is not enough. So they do it 20. This was 2 years ago, I discovered that. In the village where I grew up, and I believe in other cities, 20 minutes before, 10 minutes before, and at the time. Why? Because 10 minutes is not enough to get ready. Now, you know a whole week about Shabbat. Everything is closed at noon. There are no schools. Everything shuts down. 1 o'clock, you cannot buy new challah. You cannot buy gefilte fish. Everything has to be done. It's so funny. If something can define our generation is that we always hurry, we have no time to pay attention. We are so addicted to this that you look around. I was somewhere just the other day. Half the people are looking at their phones. They have no time to socialize. They have no time to talk. Where are you rushing? Where are you running? They have social media. They have to watch. They need to binge. This is what defines our generation. If you take my Zaidi, your Zaidi, and you put them today, you look around and says, "Where are you running? What have you lost?" It defines a Friday afternoon in the literal sense of the word. So when my kids or people say to me, "What can you do about that?" I say to them, "It's Friday afternoon. What can you do? Friday afternoon, everybody is late. Everybody is behind." There is a reason for it according to Kabbalah, but I don't want to get to it. Let's continue. So the 7 emotions that we're talking about, that we are made of, are corresponding to the 7 days of creation and correspond to the 7 millennia. So we are at 5783. We have another less than 200 years. Oh, I'm sorry, less than 300 years, 217 years until we reach the 7th millennia, which for sure by then Mashiach will come much, much earlier because you have to accept Shabbat before sunset. So these are not my words, this is the Rebbe's words. The Rebbe used to say that all the time. Yes.
Question, so when God said human life will be 120 years, then if you do 120 years time jubilees, 15 years, that's 6,000 years. It correlates with that too, right?
I'm not the math professor. We have another math professor in the room. Could be.
Oh, it does, yeah, if you times it 120 times 15.
I'm a simple Jew. I read the text in simple ways. I get inspired when people teach me about math, but when I study Torah, I go for the number, for the simple text. The Torah says God created the world in 6 days. It's the 6 days that we know. The Torah says on the Shabbat he rested. The Shabbat we know, no different. These 7 attributes are known as the 7 days of creation, for it was through these 7 attributes that God created the world. Each day's creation came about through a particular attribute. During the first day, Chesed was dominant, the second day, Gevura, and so on. Now we continue reading in the text. Just as the 10 supernal Sfirot are divided into 2 general categories, so too with the human soul and its 10 faculties, they are divided into 2 general categories: Seichel, intellect, and Midot, emotional attributes. So when you have in the human, just like God created the universe and he used the 10 attributes, the human being is divided into 2 parts: Seichel and Midot. Seichel represent intellect, Midot is the attributes. And the Rabbi is going to talk about now the intellect. I concentrated on the Midot and the emotional because I gave you just a short abbreviated introduction. The Rabbi is going to talk about the Seichel, about the intellect. The category of intellect includes the 3 all-inclusive intellectual powers, and they are Chochmah, Bina, and Dat, which is Chabad, while the Midot, which bear the same names as the corresponding 7 Sfirot, Chesed, Gvura, etc., represent the following emotions: love of God, dread of and awe of Him, glorification of Him, and so forth. Love corresponds, I'm reading soon, I'll explain. Love corresponds to Chesed, kindness, as they are respectively the internal, that is emotional, and external, practical aspects of the same trait. The dread and awe of God corresponds to Gevura, as they are its inner aspect. So too the glorification of Him corresponds to Tiferet. Chabad, the intellectual faculties, are called the mothers and sources of the Midot, for the Midot are offspring of, that is, derived from Chabad. I think I shared with you the idea that the mothers of the emotionals are the brain, the mindset. The mindset is the mother, and therefore, in the healthy way. We're talking about a healthy human being. In other words, I'm going to love somebody based on what my mind says. If my mind says this is the right thing, I'm going to be strict with somebody based on what my mind said, not how I feel or what somebody else wants me to do. Based on my mind, the mother will give birth to a healthy child. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the mindset. Before the rabbi is explaining it, I'll explain it, and then we'll read it with the rabbi's explanation, which is very similar. The intellect head, our brains, is made out of 3 parts, according to Kabbalah. Chokhmah, wisdom, the Bina, understanding, and knowledge, which is Da'at. I am going to separate Da'at. Da'at, the rabbi will talk about at the end of the chapter for a reason. Chokhmah and Bina. Chokhmah, anybody heard that from me before, the idea of Chokhmah and Bina? Nobody?
Yeah.
I said it many times. Chokhmah is the first flash of idea that enters my mind. The word Chokhmah denotes wisdom. In Hebrew, it's made out of 2 words. Koach ma. Koach ma means a power of nothing, of something that I can't even define. Maze meaning what is this? Koach ma, power of what? It's not the actual power. Flash of an idea is when we want to find a solution to a problem. I want to decide if I take the job, or I want to know how to respond, how to answer. I need to concentrate, right? If there is noise, you cannot concentrate. Why do you need concentration? Because you need to receive an idea that's outside of you. When I have the idea in the first, so to say, simple germane form, it is called Chokhmah. I know I have the solution, but if someone at that moment start talking to me, I will lose the idea and I'd say, gosh, I forgot what, I don't remember. How many times we have a quiz and we ask people, can you find a solution to this problem? And they think, and one says, oh, I got the answer. And we say to him, what's the answer? He says, give me a minute. I have to think about it. Now, at the moment when he says, I got the answer, he really has the answer with everything. However, he cannot yet say it. And if you're going to distract the person, that idea will run away. It runs away. It's a flash of light. If you are able to absorb that light, you'll have a lot of energy, but it takes a split second. Afterwards, if you wake up a millisecond later, it's already gone, it's over. That's the idea of Chokhmah, Koach ma. What's the best trait to receive Chokhmah? As we'll discover it in many times, I'm starting to plant the ideas in your heads now, is bitul. Bitul is humility. Why? Humility creates an empty vessel for allowing the idea to enter. Bina will do the exact opposite, as we'll talk about Bina. Chokhmah is all about allowing for the idea to enter from outside. Outside, one day we'll discover, from Keter. Remember the crown we talked about? It's a different power that do not exist in our body. In order for me, people who are Chacham, Einstein, for example, they can sit and concentrate and come up with brilliant ideas that nobody ever fathomed. They can do it because they can create a very clear vessel to allow for the idea to enter. So most inventors, when do they invent? Anybody knows? Either when they go to sleep. Some of them, as soon as they fall asleep. Somebody told us here in class many times that Thomas Edison had some types of device that when he was falling asleep to wake him up, because all these great ideas were there just as he was falling asleep. And he needed a device to wake him up then and write down his ideas. Why? Because that's when your head is empty. People who are great inventors, they need quiet times. I know what's his name from Apple, once a year you'd go away for 10 days. Steve Jobs, 10 days. He would have his own retreat without nobody, not his wife, not his children, because an idea can enter when you create a vessel. In Kabbalah, it's very essential because we call it bitul. The beginning of everything is bitul. Bitul means nullification. I'm going to share a few examples where we see it. If I put a seed in the ground and I want the seed to connect to the ground and sprout and create a tree, what happens? The process needs to be done to the seed before it can grow something, is it needs to totally get lost, decay. What do you call it? Get rotten. He has to germinate. He's losing everything. He's totally lost into the ground, and that's when something new can come out. If that does not exist, bitul did not happen, it will not create a tree. That's what Chachma is about. So if I know some people who are great with Chachma. By the way, all 10 attributes, we possess all 10, but some people are very strong in one of the 10. So there are 10 colors. I have seen 4 colors in the general in the world, but according to the Kabbalah and Judaism, there are 10 attributes, and each person belongs to one of those 10. Chacham, someone who is smart, or wisdom in particular, is someone who is able to find solutions to problems, invent new ideas. That happened because they have bitul. So some people who have a lot of chokhmah but no bitul, it will not penetrate, it will circle around them. What is bitul again? Bitul is nullification, self-nullification. There is no word for bitul in English. The word bitul is non-existence. Gone. So anyone who came up with solutions to problems or with new ideas, it happened on a very strange moment when they were able to let go of themselves, literally. And it's exercise that helps a person reach that point. Bina is the exact opposite. Bina is the second one. I use the Hebrew words because I want you to get used to wisdom, knowledge. Bina. Bina is from the word, understand, thank you. Bina, understanding, is for me to be able to speak up and tell you what the idea is. Bina also from the root of livnot, boneh. Boneh means to build. How do you build a house? You have to put one brick at a time. How do you build a machine? A machine made out of 9,900 parts. How do you do that? You have to design and put each part slowly, one at a time. Bina is from building. You got to go in steps. Now you have to use your capacity to build. You have to go one step at a time with your full energy. So you have bitul. Bitul means total nullification to find the idea, but then you need to draw it into your brains and develop it into details, use your brains, and take your time. You know what example is the good example of the connection between Chokhmah and Bina? Father and mother. The father will provide the seed only when they are totally united. If there is destruction, the father will not be able to emit the seed. The seed can come when the father is totally engulfed in the act of uniting with the mother. Otherwise, it doesn't work. That's the Chokhmah. The Chokhmah contains the DNA and everything of the baby. However, if the mother does not take it, it gets lost. But when the mother takes it, she has to take the time, 9 months, building one body part at a time. If someone is inducing the baby earlier, what happens? It's not a complete baby. There's no life. The Bina and Chokhmah walk in tandem, but they are opposite each other. So according to Kabbalah, when we call midot, our offsprings of the mother, remember mother, we said the intellect, it's actually Chokhmah is father and Bina is mother. It's the mother that gives birth to the children, to the offsprings. We'll talk about it in greater details many other way. Any questions so far? Did I make myself clear about Chokhmah and Bina? Da'at, what do we call that? Knowledge? That is the experience of the idea. If I have an idea and I have already developed it and I put it in writing and I explain it to people, meaning I know that I have a good understanding with all the details and the exceptions to the rules, etc., I need to experience it. The experience in the father and mother is a child. in the real world is building the building, not just talking about it, not just coming up with an idea, not just drawing the plan, but actual building the house. When I build the house, the experience will make me remember, it will change my life forever. If I have it only in talking about that or only writing it, Bina, 5 years later, if you ask me the questions about the project, I may not remember it. But if I work through a house that I built, I'll never forget the size of the windows and the window treatments and the wallpaper, etc. Because action, that is the action, that is the, and we'll get to it later. But what's important at this point is Chochmah and Bina, our father and mother, that create the emotions that are supposed to be. Why is it important? As we'll discuss, the Rabbi points out, Rambam, Maimonides is right, that the only way to love God and respect and have awe is through itbonenut. Itbonenut meaning, what is itbonenut? Contemplation. To be able to use our brains to think how great God is, how mighty God is, and how little we are in comparison, and yet He cares enough to be able to communicate and bless us and watch the way we behave. When we constantly and continuously contemplating that, it will wake love and awe and respect for God. According, the Rebbe says that Rambam writes, "Ech hi haderech," how is the path to love God? Says the Rebbe, Rambam is excluding any other way. There is no shortcut. You cannot awaken or connect God to God with love and respect unless you use your brains to contemplate and concentrate. And that's the reason we pray so many times and so long. All that is just to bring us to a point of connecting to God and loving God. By the way, the same exact way work with a spouse, a partner, a friend, a sibling. There is no shortcut. There is no way to get a shortcut. In order for us to really connect with people, is use our brains, the benefits, the blessing, God's desire. And when we contemplate and keep concentrating and thinking about it, it will awaken the love and the respect for one another. Now we're going to see how the Rabbi is saying that in a very similar words. At this point, it would be worthwhile to explain briefly the function of the faculties Chochmah, Bina, and Dat, abbreviated as Chabad, mentioned frequently in the coming chapters. We will get into in many, many ways about each one of those three. Chochmah is the first flash of intellect. It is the seminal and inner point of an idea. The seminal point of intellect already includes within it all the details and ramifications of the idea. But as yet, they are concentrated and obscured. This is analogous to a dot in which the dimensions of length and breadth are not evident. All that is seen is the dot. Although for the dot to exist, it must certainly contain length and breadth. So you have a dot. You have just a dot, but it must have all the DNA, all the details that later on will be coming out. Chochmah is also called Barak HaMavrik, the intuitive flash of illumination, which is the beginning of intellectual revelation. For instance, we may observe how a person striving to answer an intellectual question suddenly realizes in a flash of intuition that the question can be answered along a particular line of reasoning. At the moment of illumination, he is as yet unaware exactly how the particular question is answered. He knows only that he has found an adequate solution to the problem. Thereafter, the faculty of Bina, understanding, come into play. Through cognition, Bina apprehends, crystallizes, and clarifies the details of the idea which was obscure in Chochmah, until the whole edifice of the idea in all its length and breadth becomes manifest. For this reason, the function of Bina is described as mevin davar mitoch davar, to understand or deduce one matter out of another. That is, That which was previously concentrated in the obscure intuitive flash of Chokhmah is now revealed and understood. One more paragraph and we'll stop. After the person fully understands the idea with all its details and ramifications, he must then immerse himself in it, binding and unifying himself with it to the extent that he not only understands it, but also feels it. Only in this way can he be affected by the idea. If his understanding points to the desirability of a particular thing, it will give birth to love for it. If his understanding indicates instead the harmfulness of a particular thing, he will react with feeling of fear and flee from it. And similarly with other emotions. The faculty with which one thus immerses himself in an idea is called da'at, knowledge, which is etymologically related to the expression en adam nu yada Eve, a verb which denotes attachment and union. We now return to the text. So next week we'll continue on. The Rabbi is going to go even deeper into the idea of Chokhmah, Bina, and Da'at. Thank you very much. We'll continue next week, God willing.